I'm out of the trailer. If you have a 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 and you're just looking for a little bit more support for your suspension so it lasts longer, and you have some heavy duty loads behind you and you just want a little bit more of a better ride quality too, then the Hellwig Pro Helper Springs are going to be a great option for you. So let's check it out. Now the ones we have installed today are going to be the ones rated for 3,500 pounds. But it's going to be the same concept for any of these, whether you're looking at the Pro 25s or just a regular series. They're just going to have different weight capacities, but they're all going to function the same way. Something else to think about with these, or with that weight capacity I was talking about a little bit ago, is this isn't going to be adding 3,500 pounds to what you can handle. That's just what these are rated for and what they're going to perform best at. What's really cool about them, though, are they're custom fit, so they're going to custom fit to your leaf springs, but you can also custom fit the way they're going to work with whatever loads you have. So what I mean by that is when we look over at this U-bolt at the very end, you can actually thread that a little bit tighter. So if you need a little bit more tension for your loads, you can do that. If you need a little bit less tension for just a better ride quality, you can just loosen them up. And speaking to that ride quality, you're going to find one of the major things it will affect is just the sagging from the back end of the vehicle. And if you have a lot of sagging, what can occur is your lights can be kind of pointed up a little bit higher than what you like. You might be blinding other people on the road. But what you're going to find too is this is going to relieve that sagging, so your front tires are going to have more traction on the ground, giving you more control when you are driving. Now another adjustment that might affect your ride quality is going to be per side. So if you notice one side is leaning a little bit more, you can actually tighten up one side of your Hellwigs to help alleviate some of that sag. So that's kind of cool that you can custom fit per side too. This is also going to help your springs last longer because instead of all that tension constantly being applied to the springs at the bottom, this is going to help alleviate that. So this is going to last a lot longer. As far as how it's sitting in here right now, it's actually working really well. We're not blocking anything or getting in the way of anything else. All our cables are fine. I didn't really have to move anything, so that was pretty nice for what we have today. Now, if you do have a replacement for your jounce bumper, something that's a little bit larger, that might expand a bit more, that might have the chance of making contact with maybe one of your brackets of your Hellwig, but you're probably going to be working with just your regular jounce bumper. And what I really like about this kit today is if we go over to the back side, we actually have some custom fit brackets that fit around some of our hardware on our springs. Now, I've seen other type of helper springs, and some of them just have rollers that will just roll over something. I like this because I think it looks a little bit nicer, and there's no guesswork that really comes into installing these. Speaking to the install, this compared to a lot of other options is relatively pretty easy, especially when you compare it to airbags. Now what I do like about airbags is you can really custom fit your ride each time. So if you're carrying a wide range of loads behind you, that's probably going to be the better option. But if you have more so a similar load that you're constantly carrying, I think this is going to be the better option because it's going to be less work and you can kind of custom fit it to those needs. Now speaking to the install, some spots can be a little bit vague, but we actually talk about how to navigate those spots. So if you are curious about the installation, just stay tuned. We'll walk you through it. To start the installation, I like to lay everything out. And it's going to be the same parts for the driver and passenger. I just have to keep mine separated. So right now I already have my leaf springs stacked up. I'll show you how to do that here in a couple seconds. We're going to have this other bracket that goes along with it. And we're going to have a lot of different sets of U-bolts too, along with some other hardware. I like to keep mine in the bags just for the time being until we get to them. And we will need a couple socket and wrenches, but I'll talk about those sizes when we get to that spot. Now I disassembled those springs because when you get them, they're probably going to be in separate sets. But all we're really going to do is grab this 3/8 bolt and we're just going to push this through the hole in the center. Now it's going to be offset a little bit. That's going to go in it right here. We don't have to worry about these holes on the very edge. This is more of a manufacturer thing. And when we do this, we want to start with the smallest spring, going up to the next largest one, and repeating that process as we go. We're eventually going to reach a point where we get to the last spring, and we'll need to cinch this down. The way we're going to do that is by grabbing our lock washer that will fit around this bolt here, and we're going to grab this nut. Just make sure you grab the right one because it's going to share the same type of threading. We'll just hand thread that on to begin with, and then we'll grab a 9/16 socket and wrench that tightens this down completely. Now you will have to hold both ends, so what I recommend doing is just grab the wrench for the bottom. This will be kind of heavy, so kind of have a little bit of patience with it. Once you get it on, you can tighten this down the rest of the way. And when that's tightened down, you will have a torque setting to torque this bolt down to. That's going to be in your instructions. And your U-bolts that we're going to be talking about today will also have torque settings in the instructions. So what we're going to do from here is lift up this spring stack, and we're going to actually put it on the step bracket. You're going to notice we do have the head of that bolt here. We're going to just line it up with the opening of that step bracket. This is what it should look like. And from here we're going to grab our hold plate and set it just like that. Now you will have two separate small U-bolts. With the kit we're using today, we're going to be using the longer ones. The way that's going to go on is we're going to go underneath all the brackets and line that up with the holes. Once that's through, we're going to grab our nuts, thread those on until they're hand tight, and then repeat this on the other side. Then we're going to come back through and tighten this down some. Then eventually you reach to the point where you will need to torque these down. Again, just use the specified numbers in your instructions, and with this all the way tightened in place, then we can install it on a vehicle. Now I have my truck jacked up today. I got it chalked up too, just for some extra safety. This is just going to give us more room to work and give you guys a better look at what we're doing. You're probably not going to have to lift up your truck, but if you do, just be safe. Before we can actually get these springs on your suspension, what we're going to have to do is just check if we got anything blocking our way. Reference your instructions. It'll talk about a few things that might block it. If you have those, make sure you take them out of the way, but if you don't, we can move on to the next step. And really what we're going to be doing is just putting our springs in there, and we want to make sure it's in this orientation. Now if you're on the driver's side, we want to make sure where it says Hellwig, this is going to be on the rear side of your vehicle. And you'll notice this is a little bit longer than the other half. Once you've done that, I'll kind of walk you through the process of how we're going to install these U-bolts. Now we want to make sure it's looking like this on the rear side, and it's going to mirror the front side. The way it's going to grab on is it's going to wrap around this little divot here, and then mount on through this crossbar. So we're going to just go through those holes, and we're going to have this opening, and that's going to wrap around some of your hardware on your springs. And you'll hold that in place with some nuts. But let's actually do it now. So I'm just going to lift up, and I'm just going to slowly bring that in here, making sure I don't scratch nothing up, and rest it on your leaf spring. Just try to line everything up as much as you can, and I'll start installing the front U-bolt. So again, we want it in this orientation. It's just going to wrap around. And we're going to grab our crossbar, and we're just going to install it now, just pushing it up, lining it up with your U-bolt and the hardware right here. We're going to grab a washer, and we're going to grab a nut. We're just going to loosely install this for the time being. Once you have that threaded on, it can be a little bit tricky, especially when you're doing it upside down. Then you can do this on the other side of this U-bolt. Now we're going to come back over to the center where we're going to have our step bracket. And you're going to notice it has a little bit of a lip right here. So what we're going to be doing is grabbing our more medium-sized U-bolts, installing that. And this is going to wrap around your leaf springs as well. When that's sitting just like that, we're going to come to the bottom. And that's really just going to consist of us putting on this crossbar. This one's going to look a little bit more simple compared to the last one, since we're not wrapping around anything. And we're just going to put a washer on here. If one of them comes loose, that's okay. And we're going to put a nut on here too. Once this is threaded on or into place, then we're actually going to put a second one behind this too. And once this is installed, we're going to repeat that process on the other side too. Something you'll notice too, when you're tightening this up, this is going to be able to slide back and forth. I recommend pulling that more inward so it's not too close to your tire or anything it might make contact with. And when you tighten this up, you'll probably have to tighten this before you can get that second nut behind here. It's not a bad idea to find the torque setting of this too. And you can actually find that torque setting in your instructions. And when these are both torqued down, then you'll just put on that second nut. You'll also repeat that process for making sure it's nice and snug and torqued into place. And then you can repeat the same process on that rear U-bolt. We just lowered our truck back down so we can get a little more of an accurate reading. And what we're going to be doing is making sure this is in the right setting we want, because we can adjust how tight everything is by loosening up our end brackets. Right now, I'm going to leave it as is. You can tighten this up a little bit more if you want to. It's just going to depend on what you're loading up. Now, I will say you want to make sure this isn't too loose where this bracket is going to be kind of bumping around, especially if you're driving on any bumpy roads. You can test this out, and if it feels loose, then just tighten it up a bit. You also want to make sure it's not too tight, so if we have 2 inches of exposed thread right here, then that's going to be a little bit too loose. But from here, we're just going to add on our second nut. You're going to do that on both sides, on the front and back, adding 2 of them. And with this second nut in place, then that'll be pretty much the end of the installation. Now, it's not a bad idea to come back through and just check all the other bolts and make sure they're properly torqued down as well. Finally, I just recommend taking it out for a test ride with a load just to see how it performs and if you need to make any adjustments. If you do, make them, but if you don't, that'll pretty much complete our look at the installation and some of the features of the Hellwig Helper Springs on our 2024 Chevy Silverado 2500. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.